Hey everyone, so just 2 days ago I reviewed the very first Ninja Turtle movie, and now I'm here to continue the streak with its sequel, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. A movie which, really impressively, was only released a year after the original, and in movies that have big names and independent movies also, it's very hard, in fact it's very hard in general for movies to have a sequel just that fast. And so I hadn't seen this movie for 7 years, so I rewatched it yesterday because I felt I forgot a lot about it and I had to rewatch it to give a really honest review. And why I haven't seen it in 7 years? I'll reveal that later on in the review. So the gist of this movie is, after the Turtles were able to successfully beat Shredder, with the help of their master Splinter, who they were able to rescue from being held hostage by the Foot Clan, the Turtles are now trying to find a new place to live since the Foot Clan is aware of where their original sewer was. And so now they're living with April for a bit. That doesn't mean they still can't order pizza every once in a while, and one of the pizza delivery guys named Kino, played by Ernie Reyes Jr., he ends up intercepting a robbery when delivering this pizza, and the Turtles help him, and as a result expose themselves. But that's kind of a side story. The main story is that April ends up investigating a company called TGRI, Techno Global Research Industries, because they are cleaning up this waste disposal that they should have taken care of a long time ago. And Splinter ends up seeing this report and decides it's time to reveal to the Turtles that this company is the same one who created the mutagen, the Ooze, that transformed them and from regular turtles to Ninja Turtles in the first place. And so the Turtles decide to investigate this factory, and then they realize that the Foot Clan is also interested in this mutagen, and they have to try to stop them from getting their hands on any, because if the Ooze was able to do what it did to them, in the wrong hands it could lead to disasters. So let's start with what happens in the first act to keep it chronological. So the opening sequence always makes me hungry for pizza. Every New Yorker, pretty much, even a bride and her groom and 2 officers arresting someone, they're all having some nice pizza, presumably from Roy's, and it's all cheese pizza, come to think of it, at least from what I could tell. And when Kino ends up intercepting this robbery and the Turtles end up helping him, the way the Turtles save the day is with cold cuts, with yo-yo tricks, and one of them poses as a puppet that can give someone a really bad wet willy. And then I thought about the opening of the original, which involved pickpocketing and April being jumped as some teenagers are trying to steal from her van. And that's when I realized that this movie has a much different attitude than the original. And the attitude of the original was something I especially liked. It's one of the main reasons my review was very favorable. The original really talked about troubled teenagers, or at least teenagers that the world perceives as troubled. And this one doesn't really have that. It doesn't really look into their lives as much. I'm not saying that every movie in a series has to follow the same sort of message, but I mean, the drama is just not really there. Instead, it goes for comedy, and I have to admit, it didn't really work for me, especially when compared to that. But then the movie fairly dives quickly into its main storylines, and the first act, even though not very good, it ends up being cleansed. And you know, I really like the side story of the Foot Clan trying to regroup after the defeat of the first film. This movie really follows the events of the first film pretty nicely and makes sure that it knows that the loose ends of the first film are acknowledged here. Also, Ernie Reyes Jr. is a terrific addition to the cast, as is Paige Turco replacing Judith Hoag as April O'Neil. And also, the animatronics for the Turtles, still very chic and very polished, and maybe even a bit better. And this is going to sound extremely lame and weird, but if you have a chance to really look at the Turtles, then even though they're clearly puppets and animatronics, if you look at their faces, look into their eyes, then you can really see a being with very complex emotions all under there. But as for Toka and Razar, the mutants that the Foot Clan creates, that's a very different story. These animatronics are just really bad. They stick out like a sore thumb, especially compared to the very sublime animatronics of the Turtles. Toka and Razar are meant to be deliberately dumb. They're meant to be comedic relief, but when you have animatronics that are that bad, it seems like they were only built to say very small, little squeaky dumb stuff, and so that doesn't really help their cause of being a part of this movie. And as for the third act, involving the very famous Vanilla Ice song, Go Ninja, Go Ninja, Go, even though during this scene Toka and Razar end up belching themselves hilariously inside out, the song and the circumstance, they just didn't seem right. They seemed way too much on the comedic side. It almost felt like a very famous heavy metal song being played at a school dance, but censored into PG rated just to be suitable for the youngest group. Some of the fight scenes are actually pretty exciting and might even be intimidating for some children. But the worst part of this movie is Master Splinter. In fact, this Splinter is the reason that I hadn't seen this movie in 7 years. I liked him in the first film, but I did not like him in this film. So here's the deal about him. Whenever the turtles really argue with him or they do something he does not approve of, he forces them to do 10 backflips. And he does this kind of frequently, and honestly, it seems like he and his sons have forgotten that his sons saved him in the first film. If they didn't save him, then they wouldn't have to do these backflips. The strictness of this Splinter really rubbed me the wrong way, and it's not just the backflips. You see, he really gives very muddled messages about what being a ninja really is. He talks about how it might be too dangerous to just take on the Foot Clan, and he may have a point, but at the same time he seems to just be ignoring the fact that the Foot Clan can really wreak havoc on innocent citizens. And in the third act, he tries to convince Kino to not fight alongside his buds, even though they're his sons and they could be hurt without some extra assistance, only because he doesn't have to fight. But Kino ignored his warnings, and if Kino hadn't, then the turtles might have, well, they might not have won and saved the day, because Kino ended up doing something that really helped them, really made everything a very close call. This Splinter was just mad at the world for how it works, and whenever it just didn't go his way, even if he had no control over it, he had to blame his sons. So much so that my original grade was a lot lower than what I would give it now. The more I thought about it afterward, the more I thought there's still some pretty nice stuff, and it probably doesn't deserve as low a grade as originally. It is not a horrible sequel. It just does a more comedic approach. And if you're more into the comedy, then you might like this better than the original. But I felt like the horrible animatronics of Toka and Razar and the very bad and misplaced attitude towards Splinter really drag it down. So my grade today of The Secret of the Ooze is a C. So pretty soon I'm going to go into the movie from 1993, New Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, or as some people call it, Turtles in Time. And I hope to see you there, and I hope you're not too mad at me if you really love The Secret of the Ooze. I'm really glad you liked it more than me if you have, and I'm glad you saw more in it than I did if you did. So yeah, see you around.